Okay, good evening. We're back with Second Chronicles chapter 8, Solomon's many achievements. It was now 20 years since Solomon had become king, and the great building projects of the Lord's temple and his own royal palace were completed. Solomon now turned his attention to rebuilding the towns that King Hiram had given him, and he settled Israelites in them. It was at this time, too, that Solomon fought against the city of Hamath Zoab and conquered it. He rebuilt Tadmor in the desert and built towns in the region of Hamath as supply centers. He fortified the cities of Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon, rebuilding their walls and installing barred gates. He also built Baalath and other supply centers at this time and constructed cities where his chariots and horses could be kept. He built his to his heart's content in Jerusalem and Lebanon and throughout the entire realm. There were still some people living in the land who were not Israelites, including Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These were descendants of the nations that Israel had completely destroyed. So Solomon conscripted them for his labor force, and they serve in the labor force to this day. But Solomon did not conscript any of the Israelites for forced labor. Instead, he assigned them to serve as fighting men, officers in the army, commanders of his chariots, and charioteers. King Solomon also appointed 250 of them to supervise the various projects. Solomon moved his wife, Pharaoh's daughter, from the city of David to the new palace he had built for her. He said, "My wife must not live in King David's palace, for the ark of the Lord has been there, and it is holy ground." Then Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings to the Lord on the altar he had built in the front of the foyer of the temple. The number of sacrifices varied from day to day according to the commands Moses had given. Extra sacrifices were offered on the Sabbaths, on new moon festivals, and at 3 annual festivals: the Passover celebration, the Festival of Harvest, and the Festival of Shelters. In assigning the priests to their duties, Solomon followed the regulations of his father David. He also allowed Levites to lead the people in praise and to assist the priests in their daily duties. And he assigned the gatekeepers to their gates by their divisions, following the commands of David, the man of God. Solomon did not deviate in any way from David's commands concerning the priests and Levites and the treasuries. So Solomon made sure that all the work related to the building of the temple of the Lord was carried out from the day its foundation was laid to the day of its completion. Later, Solomon went to Ezion Geber and Eleth, ports in the land of Edom, along the shore of the Red Sea. Hiram sent his ships commanded by his own officers and manned by Oh man, sorry guys, I'm really bad at reading today. Manned by experienced crews of sailors. These ships sailed to the land of Ophir with Solomon's men and brought back to Solomon almost 17 tons of gold. Second Chronicles chapter 9. The Queen of Sheba's visit. When the Queen of Sheba heard of Solomon's reputation, she came to Jerusalem to test him with hard questions. She arrived with a large group of attendants and the grand caravan of camels loaded with spices, huge quantities of gold, and precious jewels. When she met with Solomon, they talked about everything she had on her mind. Solomon answered all the questions. Nothing was too hard for him to explain to her. And when the Queen of Sheba realized how wise Solomon was, and when she saw the palace he had built, she was breathless. She was also amazed at the food on his tables, the organization of his officials, and their splendid clothing, the cupbearers and their cups, and the burnt offering Solomon made at the temple of the Lord. She explained to the king, "Everything I heard in my country about your achievements and wisdom is true. I didn't believe it until I arrived here and saw it with my own eyes, and truly I have not heard the half of it. Your wisdom is far greater than what I was told. How happy these people must be. What a privilege of your officials to stand here day after day, listening to your wisdom. The Lord your God is great indeed. He delights in you and has placed you in the throne to rule for him. Because God loves Israel so much and desires his kingdom to last forever, he has made you king so you can rule with justice and righteousness. Then she gave the king a gift of 9,000 pounds of gold and great quantities of spices and precious jewels. Never before there had been spices as fine as those the Queen of Sheba gave to Solomon. When the crews of Hiram and Solomon brought gold from Ophir, they also brought rich cargoes of almug wood and precious jewels. The king used the almug wood to make steps for the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, and to construct harps and lyres for the musicians. Never before had there been such beautiful instruments in Judea. King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba whatever she asked for, gifts of greater value than the gift she had given him. Then she and all her attendants left and returned to their own land. Solomon's wealth and splendor. Oh my goodness. Each year Solomon received about 25 tons of gold. This did not include the additional revenue he received from the merchants and traders. All the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land also brought gold and silver to Solomon. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold, each containing over 15 pounds of gold. He also made 300 smaller shields of hammered gold, each containing 7.5 pounds of gold. The king placed these shields in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Then the king made a huge ivory throne and overlaid it with pure gold. The thrones had 6 steps, and there was a footstool of the gold attached to it. On both sides of the seats were armrests with the figure of a lion standing on each side of the throne. Solomon made 12 other 12 other lion figures, one standing on each end of each of the 6 steps. No other throne in all the world could be compared with it. All of King Solomon's drinking cups were solid gold, as were the utensils in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. They were made of silver because silver was considered of little value in Solomon's day. The king had a fleet of trading ships manned by the sailors sent by Hiram. Once every 3 years the ships returned, loaded down with gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. So King Solomon became richer and wiser than any other king on the earth. Kings from every nation came to visit him and to hear the wisdom God had given him. Year after year, everyone who came to visit him brought him gifts of silver and gold, clothing, weapons, spices, horses, and mules. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for his chariot horses and 12,000 horses. He stationed many of them in the chariot cities and some near him in Jerusalem. He ruled over the kings from the Euphrates River to the land of the Philistines and to the border of Egypt. The king made silver as plentiful in Jerusalem as stones, and valuable cedar wood as common as the sycamore wood that grows in the foothills of Judea. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and many other countries. Summary of Solomon's reign. The rest of the events of Solomon's reign from the beginning and end are recorded in the record of Nathan the prophet, and in the prophecy of Ahijah from Shiloh, and also the visions of Iddo the seer, considering Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. When he died, he was buried in the city of his father, David. Then his son Rehoboam became the next king. Okay, and with that, I'll be back later with chapter 10.